What is up, dirt dorks? I can never say that properly, Kevin. Living soil nerds, the Friday night crew, people that want to continue to better themselves on a Friday night instead of kind of wasting away those Fridays. Like speaking on myself there in the early days, there's something to that, man, and you're building up. There's a lot to life, and part of that is understanding what you're able to work with in Mother Nature. And so you buy a piece of property. All of that property is not going to be level 10, ready to go kind of thing. And so what does it take to build up a piece of property like you're seeing live right now with Kevin? Well, in my opinion, that takes a lot of compost, thinking forward, especially for this show. Now we're talking bio-remediation. So we're taking that microbial life and continuing to improve on Mother Nature. And then we're going to dive deeper. That's why we're showing the sunflowers, dandelions, a lot of things that are dynamic accumulators. These are things that are going to be able to improve that soil system. So I want to throw it over to Kevin. If you could kind of explain what everybody's seeing here, man. It's just,
Yeah.
this is, you're showing the end game, man. In my opinion, kind of where you hope to finish in life, with your own little piece of property, growing what you want, with your kids in the house, safe and sound. I mean, that's, in my opinion,
Good,
that
dude.
is, yeah, you've done it, dude.
Yeah, that's it, man. Have a family, try to grow some food. Here's some nice Blue Lake beans. Here's some big ladies, y'all. Got a little flower in there. I've ripped all the leaves off of the whole sunflower, so it's not blocking anything. It's just the sunflower, man. But yeah, look at those girls. So yeah, we're kind of talking about bioremediation and things like that. And one of the things that you're going to see in my garden here, sunflowers always face east. There's the sun going to set, rises over there. It's going to set in the west. Anytime they pop, they're always going to harden up towards the east like this. So I never get to see them. I always have to walk back here to check them out. But sunflowers, fun for lots of reasons. Number one, what we're kind of talking about is soil remediation, bioremediation, photo remediation, all these. There's lots of different types of remediation. We'll probably talk about a few of them. But like the sunflower, the foliage. If you'll notice, I rip all the foliage off because I don't want it to block all the light to my other plants, tomatoes and things down here. And it works, you guys. A lot of people be like, "Oh, you'll mess the plant up," but it might cause it to stretch or shrink a little bit, but I still get the sunflower head, I still get the seeds, and I still get my plants growing food. Because my philosophy is I don't want my flowers to block my food. My food is more important, and so that's kind of how I grow. But those sunflowers right now, these are brand new no-till beds that I just put in March 1st. That's when I dug. That's when I started digging this middle one right here. I've been putting lots of things in to make it healthier and better, but the sunflowers are actually in there taking anything out that might be, toxic or too concentrated, things like that. And these sunflowers, they can typically the sunflower is a plant that will absorb toxins through the root, and it won't store it in the root. Some plants do, but it likes to send it up here into the foliage and pack it in here. And so if you've got a toxic soil or something like that, or you've had a backyard where maybe there was car work being done back there or tractor work being done, and you're like, man, I'd love to have a garden. I'd love to have a garden right here, but I know there's oil spills and stuff like that. Man, spend a year or two growing plants, growing cannabis, growing sunflowers, growing corn, growing tobacco. All these plants that put out this big foliage like this typically are good. Um, oh gosh, what are they?
So,
Accumulators.
photo remediation, soil remediation. Like you had mentioned, the sunflower is kind of like the apex, besides maybe hemp now, of the
Yeah,
symbol of being able to improve a soil system over time.
definitely. Because it puts up, it takes all that, it takes all the toxin and puts it up here. And so you could take all of this, throw it away and burn it, if you want. If it was really toxic soil, that's how they do it. They take the plants and they destroy the plants because the plants are now full of toxins that they pulled out of the soil. But for me, I'm not dealing with real toxic stuff at all. I'm breeding sunflowers, but really I'm using this material because it has soaked up not a bunch of toxins, but a bunch of nutrients. these leaves are full of nutrients more than toxins. So these are going back onto the ground constantly, just like this, y'all. Just piles of sunflower leaves going back down as organic matter, protecting the soil, letting the shredders and microbiology have a home to live under there. But the sunflowers are definitely helping the soil out if there's something, it's just keeping them and it's keeping the soil in balance, I guess, in a way. It's using some nutrients, it's putting some nutrients back, it's pulling up any bad stuff that I might not need. So just a good idea to grow sunflowers. But like Bryan said, man, cannabis is a huge plant to absorb toxins because it can put out so much foliage. It's the upper biomass of a plant that really tells you, okay, if it can grow big and I can really get this thing to grow, it can really absorb a lot of toxins, because there is certain plants that they'll grow in water to absorb toxins from spills and stuff like that. They take a while to grow, but the biomass up top gets so big it will collect a lot of the toxin, and then they take that biomass and they destroy it, get rid of it.
And that's why hemp is kind of like, I guess, the new shiny toy in the garden for a lot of people, is because you can have the extensive growth, the fast growth. You can prune it back a little bit and it's going to grow a little bit faster and deeper. And so instead of it taking years, potentially it might take like a year or a few months, even if it's not too bad. I mean, motor oil, that kind of stuff would obviously take years to clean up. But for a lot of people, when they buy their piece of property, it's more just it wasn't taken care of properly. It's probably, the soil has a lot of compaction. So kind of thinking as there's something, you have a problem with this, how do I fix this issue? It's getting into at first, in my opinion, the bio-remediation as the plants are starting to grow. And that is, again, that phyto-remediation. So you're using sunflowers, I think is, again, the most famous one. But for a lot of cannabis individuals, we want to use hemp. And in the grasses, I've always heard that the Bermuda grasses are actually the most effective in doing that phyto-remediation, especially if you're trying to do it as like a lawn care thing. That Bermuda grass, I guess there's something special to that.
Yeah, so sunflowers would be one of them. Fescue, I know a tall fescue is one. Barley and wheat, those are plants that you can grow in spots of your yard that you feel, spots of your yard you feel are possibly have toxins in them, oil, petroleum, things like that. There's hydrangeas. I grow hydrangeas, and hydrangeas definitely pull stuff out of the soil. You can adjust the color of your hydrangeas from pink to blue, often by the acidity of your soil. So it just kind of shows how the soil affects those plants, because they are really pulling up what's there, and it actually changes the outside look of the plant so much so. Let's see, clover, those ones, red and pink clover, are good to not only pull out toxins, but really to probably put nutrient back in the ground through exudates, things like that. You said brassicas, that's like cabbages and kales, Brussels sprouts, all those brassica plants are always good to grow, and you're able to grow those in the wintertime often if you have a little hoop house or something like that. So you can constantly be growing brassica plants. I was reading today, Amanita muscarias, mushrooms. This would lead us to a whole category of bioremediation, that they've started to use bacteria and fungi and all that stuff to break down plastics and oils and all that. But Amanita muscaria, the fly aggregate, mini mushrooms, they'll pull up toxins and things like that. So there's lots of things. It's just basically, it's going to be difficult for you to stick a plant in the ground and it not absorb toxins. The point of, what are they called? The point of the hyper-accumulator plants, tobacco, cannabis, corn, sunflowers. The point is they have a gene in them that in their DNA, and when that gene is switched on, it allows the plant to absorb higher levels of toxic minerals or chemicals, whatever the case may be, because it understands how to move it through the plant. It can absorb it through the root. It can be protected in a way to go up the plant and into the leaf and stored there and either evaporated out or broken down so much so that it becomes energy. And there's lots of options that these things that happens in the plant and what it does. That's kind of what I was interested in, is when the plant gets the toxins in it, what does it do with it? You know, if it doesn't get poisoned by it, it must be engineering it some way for its benefit. If it's Mother Nature, is my assumption. And reading, that is what they do. Often it turns it into energy, into food, uses it in lots of different ways. It's called the HA gene, the hyper-accumulating gene. When that gene is turned on in the DNA of a plant, it will be a hyper-accumulator.
And I think that kind of shows the same with a human being, how, you know, people kind of disregard plants, where if it does take up too much of one thing, it is able to move it around the plant, put it maybe in a cell wall, put it in plant material so that it separates it so it doesn't have toxic levels. And I think there's something to that, when if you are growing, you know that you want to grow cannabis in a year or two, but you don't have everything set up. That's why from day one, we've always talked about, you set up your worm farm, and then you want to start kind of your bio-remediation, phyto-remediation also as quickly as you can, so that that piece of property becomes something. And as long as you're growing each summer, these heavy metals, these toxins that could potentially be there, obviously are being diminished year after year. And I think, again, there's something special to using the proper earthworm or composting worm, depending on what goals you're trying to achieve, and speeding up that process. And obviously Kevin's one of the best at it to explain it to you as well. But this is, again, where I hope you guys realize that just kind of understanding Mother Nature a little bit, playing around with Mother Nature, you'll see how quickly the earth itself would be able to clean up if human beings weren't here. And this is obviously on a microcosm scale in your backyard and that kind of thing. But it is pretty fascinating to see, like, if you do fuck up, how quickly things can be replaced, renewed. You could add some compost, maybe even some vermicompost, and really start to speed things up. And then you're back to square one within maybe a year at worst, it seems like. If you got like root problems, root aphids, something that was just, there's no coming back from. It does seem like you are able to speed up your soil systems when you understand these properties. Kevin?
No, yeah. I'm just writing stuff down as you talk here, man. That's what I'm doing. One direction that I want to take it is when I was first started showing composting, I actually did it in a small little bucket. If you go back early enough on my page, you might still see it. I had a small little bucket that I would compost in. It was a tree. It was a tree bucket. A tree came in it, and they left it at a new house, and I saw it, and I'm like, yes, that's perfect. And so I started in that, and then I moved to the big buckets, the big cubic yards, 3 of them, and I needed more material. It's just that's all there's to it. Composting is about a 10-to-1 ratio. 10 5-gallon buckets of material give you 1 5-gallon bucket of compost. That's basically what it is. I'm stuffing my compost bins full all the time. But I started seeing, okay, on the side of the road out in the country here in Oklahoma, those big old mowers will mow this tall grass down, and basically they're turning it into hay for me. And I'm going out there collecting it. It's already piled up in the big brush mower, big old bundles of it. I'm just picking it up, throwing it in the back of my car, my truck, taking it to the composting bins and putting it in there. Going to the dumpsters, getting food from stores, from fruit markets, using what's in the trash to reuse it, and not let it just sit there and rot away in a dumpster, but actually come to my place and become compost again. So when I started getting those things, I started getting a lot of people wanting to question my methods by saying, you don't know if that grass has been sprayed or not. You don't know if those foods have been sprayed or not. And, with pesticides and whatnot. And the point, after kind of mulling it around in my head for a few weeks, trying to figure out, what is this right or is this wrong? Is this a method that I might not should be doing? And mulling it around, I finally was like, no, this is what is going to happen. Because what's going to happen to that grass if I don't pick it up? what's going to happen is Mother Nature is going to break it down. She's going to turn it into some type of nutrient for her. She's going to use microbes to bioremediate all of the toxins that might have gone into that soil or into the grass. And then she's going to use all of that to her benefit. So why shouldn't I take that stuff, bring it back to my house and let her do it there instead of along the side of the road? And that's just kind of where I came to. I can't tell you that all the food's not been sprayed with Roundup to dry it out, you know. And I guarantee that a whole bunch of it is. But the other point started to be, well, if I'm getting it out of the dumpster from the supermarket that I go to get food to eat, why am I not worried about, you know, sticking it in the compost? I'm eating it anyway. We bring it home, we wash it, but nonetheless, I'm eating the same food that they're putting in the dumpster that I'm getting to recycle and reuse. So it just made sense to me. Like ultimately, when I thought it to its end, it's like, okay, this makes sense. I can back this up. This is justifiable, you know. And then we started to learn, you know, that was like 4 or 5 years ago. Then we started learning, like you're talking about, Mr. Lane coming out and talking about bioremediation and how microbes are really starting to clean things up and how plants can absorb toxins into their body. You know, there's a phrase, phytomining. That's where they're actually growing plants in a mineral rich soil, and they're mining the mineral or the toxin out of the soil, and they mine it out of the plant tissue from there also. So that's really involved. That's a lot of chemical or a lot of toxin, whatever the case may be, coming up into a plant. But nonetheless, there are plenty of things out there that are sprayed on horse fields to stop weeds and all that stuff that I hear are very detrimental. I have gone to all kinds of farms and collected all kinds of organic material, and I've yet to suffer any kind of major setback or even a slight setback whatsoever. It's always turned in. Once it sits in composting, you know, for 8 months, once it sits behind my house and sits there in the sun and gets weathered and rained on and snowed on for 8 months, you know, microbes have had time to break things down a whole lot. And like I said, Mother Nature's ultimate point is to reuse. And so she has set up systems to fix things, and we can rely on those things. It's not like we're just dumping oily grass into our gardens. We're trying to reuse things with balance in mind, trying to reuse nature as best we can. And I think it always works. So.
Yeah, there's seasons, and I think Dr. Lane Ingham, when you took her class in the early days, I don't know if she still offers this, but you would get to have like a one-on-one Zoom class with her, with the other students, and you'd get to ask questions. And one of the students asked, you know, should human beings basically be worried about all of the plastics and that kind of stuff? And she smiled and kind of said, you know, I'm paraphrasing, that Mother Nature will find a way, and that eventually there'll be some kind of bacteria that will eat plastic. And I believe that was found even just a few years ago, that already has started to take place. And so Mother Nature is a beast. She really does find a way. And I think a lot of cannabis farmers are a little too hesitant, you know, to get into a lot of this stuff. And maybe on the flip side of that, maybe especially after this show, we'll realize that really going heavy with a lot of nutrients when you're first building your soil, you could potentially put toxicity levels by shooting yourself in the foot. So this is a slow and steady process, and Mother Nature needs to kind of Goldilocks out that little area so that the microbial society can take place. Once those fungal networks take place, that's where it kind of really does go from, you know, horse and buggy to all of a sudden you got flying cars around here. I mean, the information in that network is flying through the roof. Or through the soil, I guess that's a bad analogy there.
Yeah, hey, that bacteria you're talking about, that's another thing that, you know, we haven't talked really about it, but fungi will eat oils. They have found bacteria that will eat plastic, and that was discovered in Japan 2016 in a landfill. And they discovered bacteria growing on polyethylene, you know, the normal form of plastic, and they start growing this stuff out, and they get it to where it can eat. They get it to where this bacteria will eat a Coke bottle in 24 hours. Now that's on the doctoral report of that I read, and that's powerful. That's pretty cool. So even more stuff like that. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm not so worried about the possibility not even the probability, just the possibility of some grass being sprayed on the side of the road somehow. Even if it's salt from the winter time that got sprayed up on there, cars splashing it up. Nonetheless, man, it's like I don't think that's going to make a dent in my compost or in my no-tills. Whenever I understand that fungi can eat oils, petroleums, and bacteria can eat polyethylenes, I bet I got microbes in my soil that can handle some salt. You know what I'm saying?
Minus some of like the heavy hitters like Roundup and stuff. If you did come across something like that, how would you fix it as Kevin, as OK Calix? You got some grass clippings for whatever reason. The guy's like, hey man, these got a little extra, more than maybe. I know that Roundup was sprayed on this. How would you go about approaching that without discarding it?
Okay, yeah, there you go. That's a good requirement. Without discarding it, saying that I actually really need it and I have to use it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get it wet, soak it down real good with a hose. I'm thinking it's in a big trash bag, right? Big black 40-gallon trash bag, something like that. I'm going to get it wet all in there, soak it down with the hose, poke some holes in that bag, and then I'm going to dump some bunch of labs on it. And I'm going to just let it set for a year to the next season, and then I probably will use it. Because it's just going to give it time to wash away, to wash off, to evaporate, to be changed, deconstructed in some way that Mother Nature can do that with. And really, that's the thing about organics. You either have the time or the money. You're either able to spend the money and get it right now, or you have the time to wait to allow Mother Nature to get it to a point where you can begin to incorporate it into your organic growing. So just get it wet, let the microbiology get in there, and wait.
Right on, man. You think having it out in sunlight and stuff in the summertime, you think all that really matters? Like, I notice with my young children, like if they get a rash, diaper rash, something like that, you kind of put them by the window for 30 minutes, and if it's not too bad, it goes away. So there's really something powerful to just being in sunlight, even for 30 minutes a day, 60 minutes a day. Do you think there's something to that as well, like exposing your compost to more sunlight than, let's say, maybe the early mentors would talk about? They always talked about covering it up, kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see exposing like green manures in the sunlight. Let's say I've got I kind of did this. I've got squash plants that are consumed with squash bugs right now, or I had them this week. I pulled them all up. But anyway, I pull them up, kind of let them dry out a little bit. I move them away from the garden, let them lay there in the sun a little bit and irritate those bugs, turn them, let them dry out. And then I just put them straight in the compost. What was we talking about? I totally forgot on that, Brian. What was your question? Oh yeah, in the sun, exposing it in the sun. That's what it was. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Typing.
exposing those plants in the sun. I don't know if it really does anything to help, immediately, but I do know that keeping things in the sun for the purpose of keeping them hot is going to big time help on anything that is dealing with microbiology. Often a lot of people will tell me about their IMO3 not heating up well, or their labs not curdling up well. And it's always heat. You have to artificially manufacture heat often, because like in Oklahoma this week, it's going to be over 100 degrees every single day. And guess what? I've got I have 8 5-gallon buckets full of water, so that it's going to be hot water as it sits yesterday and today. And then I'm going to add potatoes, and we're going to rock and roll with some JMS in my garden. But that's because the sun's out. And when the sun is out, it does definitely help lots of organic systems take place way faster because of the heat that it brings. So keeping things heated up is the best thing for organics. And I'm not talking about your input staying hot. I'm talking about when you're needing microbiology to do their job, keep it moist, keep it hot, and things are going to happen way, way, way faster for you.
Yeah, I think especially when you're first like getting into making compost and that kind of thing, I don't think people realize that the temperature really does matter. And if you basically burn it, they're going to have to start from square one again. And I don't think there's a big enough of a red flag for some people. You know, they don't always read the fine print with that. So Mother Nature again, man. I mean, if you understand the things that Kevin's defining today on a deeper level, like he does, then you can kind of almost walk into any you know, land or something like that. If you were inherited, you're trying to help out a family member, you can quickly see what's around to improve that soil system, start to build up that land so that it's actually worth something. That's what I've noticed too, man. Is like properties and HOAs, they have this value, but if you really look at it, there's one tree, and then there's like maybe just a few bushes, and then grass that's immaculate, yes, but it has the pesticide signs on it where the kids can't even run in the grass, and it's just always ass backwards. So there is something to, if you can live on a piece of property that's your own, and you can have that diversity of plants, having the bees fly around. Because I don't really see any bees where it's almost just all grass, and rightfully so. I mean, where the hell would they? Where would they land? In the tree? So there's something to setting up your property from day one. Not only improving that soil system, but getting enough plants so that in a year or two, however long that's probably going to take to get decent size, you have the diversity of plants to attract Mother Nature naturally. I think you muted.
Yeah, where I see in these neighborhoods with homeowners associations and things like that, you see a lot of ants. That's what you see, because you got the grass growing, you got it cut short, you know, and the ants you'll see ant mounds all over the place. But what I want to do, man, is I want to start gardening in my front yard also. I've got too many trees right now, but one of them might be coming down just because it's angling way too much at my neighbor's house. But I'd love to garden in my front yard. You know, this is the idea of incorporating gardening into your landscaping and bringing beauty through gardening, not just through plants and flowers. But I mean, you would incorporate all of it together, because that's what an organic garden looks like. An organic garden looks kind of overgrown and consuming. It looks like your walkways are getting skinnier, you know, because everything is just growing together and it's all on everything. But the point of our style of gardening and growing is what's going underneath the soil. Above it is just the fruits of everything. But if everything down low is growing and well, and it's all connected and working together, it should be big and bushy up here. It should be just growing like crazy, you know, because what Mother Nature does with vegetation is, she says, put on as much as you possibly can. We won't use all that we're going to put on, but put on all that you can. You know, it's a survival skill. We're going to use everything we have to make ourselves continue. You know, it's basically living in chaos. If you're a human, you're expending all of your energies in the moment just so you can survive. That's why plants, you know, like cannabis, can't really live forever. They're not intended to live forever. They're intended to spend their energy and go as hard as they can. But you start to learn that in organics, you know, trimming things back a little bit does help some, you know, but it's okay if things are kind of growing around each other. You want to be worried about your soil. That's all that you're worried about. If I got things going on, if the plants are growing upstairs, everything looks good, I'm happy as can be. I'll spray a little IPM every once in a while, but mostly I'm trying to keep my soil moist, keep it covered, keep roots in it, and, you know, that kind of idea.
Coming back to sunflowers real quick, you know, you had mentioned that they follow the sun. If you like kind of watch a time lapse, you can easily Google this and watch them over like a 12-hour period. You know, you watch them face and they turn, and a field of them when it does it in a time lapse really does look pretty cool. But I think some of the more like earth type friends, hippie friends that my wife and I have kind of always mentioned that sunflower seeds are supposedly a little extra special because they do have so much sunlight on them, because that's kind of how, you know, they operate. Have you ever heard of anything like that? Does your family focus on eating sunflower seeds as it supposedly gives you a lot of energy because it has so much vitamin D, it's that type levels from the sun?
Yeah, they're super healthy, man. They're good for you. I don't know of any, you know, any magical abilities or anything like that, but they are a provider one sunflower head's going to give you thousands of seeds. And you can do lots of stuff with them. But yeah, we can roast them and eat them. I don't usually roast them. I just eat them out of the flower head. Right now in Gasoline Alley, where I have my shed and all my stuff, I've got about 12 sunflower heads already. They're all cut up. Try to get all the green off of them, but keep them in the pod, and they're just drying out for growing. These will probably be for growing later. They were kind of little smaller sunflowers is what I'm kind of going for. But yeah, we eat them. I eat them all the time. I go out in my garden. My birds are eating them right now. That's the problem with sunflowers. Once they start turning black, those seeds start looking good. Those birds will come along and start rubbing the flower off the middle and exposing that black seed and start chowing down on them. So you got to cut them off. And, squirrels will get them too, man. Squirrels go up. They'll chew the whole head off and they'll drag it through the yard. And you'll see part of it laying over here and part of it laying over there. So if you want the seeds, you got to really tend to them because nature loves those sunflower seeds.
Yeah, I was going to say that's like in that world, money on the ground. Like somebody's going to walk by and pick that up real quick. And it's from what I've learned in Mother Nature over the years, whether you're in the soil on a microbial level or you're above ground as an animal, it's very hard to get a solid source of protein, a consistent source of protein. And so that's why when they do find certain things like sunflowers, the deer and the stuff ravage these fields even here in Colorado. I was talking to your wife even about, I think we had mentioned sunflower because of the Fibonacci sequence and kind of like the same way with the pine cone. There's just something, supposedly a little magical to it. I know you said you haven't really seen anything to it, but I think a lot of cultures around the world have always seen it, the sunflower to represent peace and to kind of represent like a new birth. That's why it has always been at like nuclear fields, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see that, man. Sunflowers, I'm not saying they're not magical because in one sense they are, the beauty that they give. And that's why I have them in my garden. I love the way sunflowers look. They take over, they dominate. They're the first thing your eyes look at are those sunflowers. They're the representative of the garden. They're like, yeah, this is where I live. Look at me. So I love sunflowers. In that sense, heck yeah, they're magical. They're fantastic to grow. They bring happiness? Everybody comes out here to my house and looks at my garden back here. They're just like, God, that's beautiful. Those sunflowers are so nice. It's like, yep, that's the first thing they see are those beautiful sunflowers. So yeah, they're magical. I'm not gonna let that one go by. They're magical.
Yeah, it's just fun to have those things in the garden while you're growing cannabis, because to me that's another one of those plants that's pretty magical. I mean, you can grow it as medicine, you can grow it as like rope, industrial type uses. You can have it as clothing. I mean, so many different ways to actually use one plant.
Dude,
to have it be illegal most of our life is really comical at this point.
It's a joke. Now, what I've always found amazing about cannabis that I tell people is just exactly what you said. Those things, and I'll tell them that when you learn to grow it, just like a tomato, you will see it change. It will be one plant in the beginning and it will end a totally different plant. And that's what's so dang cool about cannabis. But then moreover, cannabis is a plant that we can breed and we can construct and direct and create. We can get a certain terpene profile, a certain look on it, get a certain medicine that comes off of it that works in a certain way. Then we can put that in seed form, send that to somebody else, and they can experience the exact same thing. That is freaking awesome about the cannabis plant to me.
Oh yeah, well said.
Magical. That's what it is. But composting. If we're talking about a few of these words, just to kind of give you all some knowledge. When we use the word bioremediation, that means just biology remediating, making it new again, making it usable again, making it good again. So bioremediation, man, it's composting. That's what you're doing. And bioremediation is actually a huge business now, trying to figure out more environmentally friendly methods of cleaning up toxic spills and places of waste and hazards and things like that. But this is something that some of y'all younger that might be going in college or something like that, You know, my college degree was environmental safety management, so I dealt with OSHA a whole lot and all these kind of things. And bioremediation was a huge deal even back in the 1990s. And so now bioremediation has moved into organics. We're learning how we can reuse things that we grow and how we can allow microbes to bio-remediate it down into a usable form again. And so, yeah, man, these things that we're doing, you know, there's doctoral papers written about this stuff. Composting, it can be written on for days. There's all kinds of great YouTube shows you can go watch. But bioremediation is one of them. You have another one called phytoremediation. You heard Bryan say that. Phytoremediation is where it's like the sunflowers or the cannabis plants, the corn, the tobacco, the big foliage plants that has that gene turned on where they can absorb high levels of toxic material and not kill themselves, but they store it in their leaves, in their foliage. There's a rhizoremediation. That's where it's dealt with in the root zone. Certain plants can put out certain exudates that will help microbes break down toxins in the soil. And so there's a battle going on at that level also with rhizoremediation. I told you about phytomining, where they're pulling up minerals and toxins in plants and then mining that out from the plant tissue itself. So, man, there's lots of different ways. Oh, another one, Bryan, that is one we can talk about is fermentation. Simple fermentation.
Simple lab.
That's like simple lab. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's level 1.
Yeah, so that's using microbiology to break something down. That's all that is. You know, when you make a fermented plant extract, whenever I use horsetail, I'm going to be making some more horsetail fermented plant extract real soon. Whenever I use it, I chop that horsetail up. I put the material in a container and I fill it full of water, and then I'll add a certain amount of labs and a little bit of molasses. And those labs will start to chew on the plant material and break it down and put it into a usable form again and just remediate it back into a usable form. And that is the idea of bioremediation and microbiology. You know, if you make beer, you know, they knew that beer was safe to drink before they knew how to make water safe to drink. Drinking water out of a well or a river could make you sick because there could be biology in there that's that doesn't agree with you. But when they made beer, because of the microbiological processes, it sanitized it. And so they could drink beer. They could make what was called light beer or kid beer, where they would feed that to their children because it was safe, and that was because of the bioremediation that was happening.
I remember learning that like the blue bloods, the ones with the significant means back in the day, they would give their children beer because there was no way that they could potentially die from. I think it was lead. Wasn't there a lot of lead in those days too? Lead poisoning.
Possibly.
I'm sure there was all kinds of shit.
Lots of stuff. A bear poop in the river upstream a little bit, and you just sit there and chug on that one hot summer day. Yeah, you're gonna be done, man. So there's that. Using microbes to ferment, that's another bioremediation. And then what was another? Growing plants. Using plants is another method of bioremediation. So, guys, all the stuff that we do, we're doing all kinds of work that people are studying right now to try to figure out how to do it better. And if you ask me, we do these things really, really well. We really understand how to use Mother Nature to our benefit to make things remediated and usable again. So it's fun to read the white papers that are going out on a lot of this stuff. Like you said, learning that bacteria will break down polyethylenes, that fungi will eat petroleum products. It's fun just to learn what they are finding out about all the things that, we use and we do. So,
well, they even claim that there are certain children now that they have seen where their diet is extremely poor, where their gut microbiome is trying to find ways to extract nutrients from very poor food like McDonald's and Burger King and stuff. So Mother Nature will find a way. It's just kind of it's just sad that a child's gut microbiome would have to change to even be able to get the nutrients to keep the kid alive, kind of thing. That's kind of where we're at with a lot of this stuff. And so understanding to the I guess the end of my life, man, I'm gonna always shout that if you understand soil systems, I promise you, you can kind of use that same knowledge to better your life with your own gut microbiome. And if you don't have time to make the labs, the kefir is something that is well worth $4 or $5. I use that. My entire family uses it, and I promise you, it'll change your life if you've had issues with really anything, man. Skin issues, all that stuff comes from the gut. And I think, again, that's a plant bioremediation. If you could see that with your own eyes, you've had to improve things. I promise you, you're not going to be able to see it in your own gut, but you'll eventually see it with the purpleness under the eyes, kind of like the way that your skin is. All of that is improved from labs, which is, in my opinion, which is kefir. Kefir's been around, I think, since the Chinese. I'm not 100% on that. But I know that they've been messing around with labs and kefir type, maybe more of like a kefir water than a kefir like dairy product. But this stuff's been around for a long, long time as a medicine. And I don't think enough people talk about it because you can use it in your garden and you can definitely use it in your own lifestyle. Yeah, kefir is a game changer.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
It's been around ever since they put milk inside of a goat's belly and it curdled up. That's been around that long. Yeah.
Yeah, so remediation, cleaning up a lot of things in your life, I think is going to be able to improve things. And I wasn't able to make it last week with there's some bullshit, to be honest. But I love coming to these things on Friday nights, and I saw that you guys were talking about summertime and getting your backyard ready with what we're talking about today is kind of like a nice little part two, even though I wasn't able to be there for the part one. Is because life, with the way that Kevin was showing you at the beginning of the show, this should be chess moves, and a lot of people kind of more checkers where it's reactive. Where with chess, there's so many different pieces that can be moved in certain different ways and only in that way. And that's what Kevin was kind of mentioning with this, especially the phytoremediation. Not every plant is going to be able to survive in your location. Not every plant is going to take up the heavy metal that's in your or a toxin that's in your backyard that you're trying to improve on. So you need to at first kind of understand, if you have an issue, what that issue is, and then go down a deeper rabbit hole and find out what is really actually going to work. Because I have heard of more of it's almost like snake oil type thing where people say that the plants are improving things, and that doesn't happen because the plant's not able to actually take up the heavy metals. And you see that more in cannabis and stuff. So again, man, just understand this a little bit deeper. I'm constantly trying to understand this more and more, and learning from people that are able to grow outside, because it really makes a difference when you're able to use the sunlight and see, all right, a couple of days go by, it makes a dramatic difference.
Dude, I love growing outside. I'm constantly preparing my plants for what's coming. September, the end of September is going to bring 100-degree weather with 100-degree humidity, and it's probably going to rain. And it's like, it's the worst, man, because bud rot's happening besides all the caterpillars happening. But yeah, growing big plants only happens in good soil, for real. I can grow the same. I am right now, guys. I am growing a couple of cannabis strains in these new no-tills just to test them out, just to see how we're doing. They look fine. They're not bad at all, but they're about 2.5 feet tall. As you can see, those other ones that are, up by 11 and 12 feet tall. It's just the nutrients isn't there. That's all there is to it. So spending time doing things that help your soil become bioremediated, if you will, helping it become healthy, helping it to have everything it needs and nothing that it doesn't. That's what's going to grow big plants outside. Because when the sun, like Bryan said, man, when you got the sun doing what it does, the sun, again, the plant in photosynthesis, it's making food. It's making energy and food for itself. So it's not just getting the food from the soil. It's also getting food from up top, man. So it's a double whammy. If you got the good soil, it has everything it needs. It's pumping more energy and food from the sun. Woo, big plants. And I told myself last year, Bryan, I was like, this is the year I want to grow big plants, because I killed 2 of my big plants last year by putting too much green manure around the roots and then too many microbes, and it heated up so hot that it cooked the roots and it killed my two big plants, man. But this year I got some big ones going because I got good soil I've been working on for 5 or 6 years, got a good amount of sun. But yeah, I know all y'all listening like to grow them outside plants too. Y'all got some big ones going. I've seen them.
Well, and like how you had mentioned at the beginning, you defoiler this plant, basically strip it all the way. That kind of represents how a lot of people, or maybe not a lot of people, some people choose to grow their cannabis plants in that manner. Or they just leave like a few leaves on top because they want everything, all the sugars and everything to be developed into the bud itself. So the cannabis bud always supersedes any kind of fan leaf, and that's kind of what you were saying as well. Just uh, you know, the food is the apex of what you're trying to grow. And when you're outdoors, you don't really have to worry about that as much because sunlight is everywhere. Where indoors, you only have a certain footprint. You really have to dial in that footprint when you're indoors, or you are wasting a lot of money on electricity growing half-assed plants.
Yeah, we're trying to grow big plants indoors. Typically, isn't the best idea. Keep them at a good size. Keep them at a good size, like you're saying, that the photons can get to every bud site on that plant. That's what you want. But growing outside, man, the sun is a disinfectant also. Like there's a lot of funguses and bad things that don't want to grow in the sunlight at all. So it just helps outside like that, man. It helps. So much more fun. There are the outside problems as opposed to the insides, but the outside just seems to be when it's working. Ooh, the reward is so much greater. When October comes, I'm gonna have so much hash rosin. I don't know if you remember last fall I was showing those two big old baller jars that I had full of rosin, man. But this year I bet I have 4 or 5 of those.
Wow. Yeah, man. I mean, life is short, and if you're able to create something for yourself and enjoy it, and you make it from day one to finished product, there's just nothing better, in my opinion, when you're enjoying something. To me, it would be like if I had the skill set to build my own car, or fix up my own car, and then drive it around town. I mean, you did all the work. Yeah, indoor is a hot mess for a lot of people. That's why I think indoors it has a certain I guess allure to it, but at the same time, if you ever really grown at any level indoors, there's also so many variables that outdoors does seem sexier once you've kind of been in the trenches. Uh, the only negative that I truly see nowadays is if you're in the city, how do you protect it from somebody? And if you have a family, uh, that's it's out. Or at least for me, it's out of the question to put them in danger like that.
Yeah. Man, I have seen people's plants get pulled up out of the ground and actually stolen. And it's like you pulled it up at the wrong time to begin with.
Yeah,
They
that's
don't
somebody that no.
understand. It's like, what are you doing? You got nothing but a bunch of leaves, dude. Like what you clearly don't know what you're doing. So it's kind of funny in that sense when it happens, but boy, it'll make you mad. I've never had one yanked up before. Um, but I've seen them. I've seen guys backyard have the whole plant in bed yanked up. So
It's usually like college age or teenage age that don't necessarily have an understanding of things. Um, Even when I was growing commercially, we were throwing the male plants in the dumpster until we found out that the homeless were taking it and stealing it and selling it as cannabis and stuff. So obviously, smoking male plants. I mean, there's really no harm to it, but Boss Man was pretty upset that our plants were being supposedly this is the weed that we were growing kind of thing. So most people outside of the cannabis community, man, I don't think they understand how it really truly works, or the fact that you can have clothing and enjoy late night uh, decompression from basically the same plant. It's like, I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to get at. It's such an underrated plant for what we're talking about today. That I don't think a lot of us realize that if you're doing some companion planting, I think that's again where it's at, especially if you're indoors, using even potentially the Bermuda grasses with some of the other dynamic accumulators. I think that's a recipe for just kind of improving things from day one. All right, you want to get into some of those questions, Kevin?
Yeah,
There's
a
5 of
couple good
them.
ones up there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Let's see.
Oh yeah.
Can I use very expired raw milk for making labs? I have some 2-week-old rice wash I want to add it to. Wow, yeah, you've gone extremes on everything, man. Go for it. See what happens. You can definitely use old milk. I've done that before. It still works. Now, here's the thing: that rice wash, that's 2 weeks old. You're starting to culture up some things that aren't really labs anymore. I mean, maybe there's nothing on it, but when I let my rice wash go 5-6 days, I typically start getting some mold or bacteria circles on the top, things like that, which I don't want making labs. Doesn't mean it ruins it at all. It's totally usable. It's just like a leaf falling in it. Just pull it out. Or mix it up in there if you want. It's just IMO growing on your IMO that you're using. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? So yes, try it out and report back. Beniza Farms, let us know if it works.
Mark Nelson wants to know about Japanese beetles.
Dude, I've talked to 3 people today about Japanese beetles. Everybody's wanting to know what the heck is chewing my leaves up. Well, I don't got thrips. I don't have mites of any kind. Japanese beetles. They are terrible this year. A Japanese beetle, you're going to think it's a June bug often. June bugs are bigger and brown. A Japanese beetle in the sunlight, it's going to have hypercolor look to it. It's going to shine the purples and red looks and gold looks. They're going to be smaller than a June bug. They're going to be constantly mating, I guess. They're on top of each other all the time. But they like to be on the very tip top of things. They like to get on the highest part of things and just start chewing up all right there. They love peas. They love cannabis. They love okra. They love cucumbers. And guys, I have spray. I think we talked about this last week, Bryan, with Mark. Oh yeah, and shout out to Mark. We haven't said anything about him, brother. I hope he feel better. He did not feel good, and family didn't feel good, so he took a break tonight. Shout out to Mark, brother. We miss you. But I have tried EM5, OHN, Labs, Regalia, Venerate, Neem, Azamax, and insecticidal soap. Nothing slowing them down. So it's like, well, I just shake them off the plants. I go out there and just shake them whenever I'm out there. That's all I can do. So yeah, sorry, man. Sorry, Mark Nelson. Nothing. Pray.
If it's not too bad, I've seen people buy like a shop vac specifically for the Japanese beetle and manually go out there and kill them. I mean, that's up to you if you want to put in that kind of labor, but supposedly that really will make a dent in them if you're on top of it. I just saw this. I wasn't sure what this horsetail, if it meant.
So somebody said horsetail. Jorge GTZ. Horsetail question mark. I'm going to assume I know what you're asking. What is horsetail? Horsetail is something that will grow along a creek, a river, lake. It likes a little bit of water, and it looks like real skinny bamboo. I used to call it river bamboo. I had no idea it was horsetail till just recently, really. But it looks like skinny bamboo. It grows in little segments, and then at the top, it'll put out this little pine cone looking thing. And what horsetail does is it spreads through spores. It's an ancient grass, basically, that spreads through spores and not roots or seed or anything like that. And at the top it'll put out kind of a fanny thing at the end, and that's kind of why it's called horsetail. But here's the thing about horsetail. Looking like bamboo, it acts a lot like bamboo in the fact that it will bring you high levels of silica if you use it in your JLF, or if you make a fermented plant extract where you bioremediate the stuff out using labs and molasses like we were talking about. So horsetail is very, very valuable for growing. It's what I've been using all year long. It's basically just for silica to keep my plants healthy. It keeps cell walls thick so that they're hard to an animal or hard to a bug, and that makes them stronger. They'll sway in the wind. Man, I put up a video of my plants getting blown by freaking wind. They were laying over. And one of my plants laid over and the bamboo pole snapped, but the plant did not break itself. It's totally fine. Put it right back up and good to go. So, yeah, that horsetail is good stuff.
It's like elasticity in the plant. It's almost like if there's enough there, the plant can just go the next level. And the best way I can describe it for what I understand is it becomes almost more of like a ligament than just like the cell wall, where it has a lot more give um, than breakage. And that also is, from what I understand, you have to have a ton of calcium to achieve that as well. Yellow Skunk Farms, what's the best way to store a lab and how long will it last?
All right, here's the point about labs. If you're going to store labs, you got to get it cleaned up. You got to let it settle a lot. Let it, like let's say I make it in a 5-gallon bucket. When I open the lid, it's got a big head of cheese on the top, right? I start pouring the liquid out, just holding the cheese back, and I'll pour and pour and pour, and then I'm going to stop and let about a third of that just be usable labs, but not that I'm going to store and for long term. I'll pour that lab out of the bucket into a glass jar, big half gallon glass jar, and it'll sit there for a week, settling down. Lots of stuff settling down. I'll even scoop stuff off the top, the cheese that might have got in there that floats. But then I will pour it out and leave just that bottom bit. And as it sets now, it's going to settle even more and it's going to clear up a lot. Now, here's the deal. Whenever you fill the jar with labs, fill it all the way to the top so that when you put the lid on, a little bit of lab splashes over. Seal it up. That will have zero air for there to be any type of bacteria or anything, mold that'll grow on the top. And you won't have any of those issues of things growing on the top that everybody freaks out about. Now, once you start to use your labs and pour it out, then you're going to have air in there that's going to allow that white surface biofilm to grow on top. But that's no big deal. Who cares? It's just, again, it's IMO growing on your labs. Shake it up. That's what I do. If you want to, you can pour it out. You can scoop it out with a spoon, but that's just a whole lot of work. Now, that's how I store my labs. I get it nice and clean, and I don't have to add molasses. It'll last for months and months and months. The way people like to do it is called shelf-stable labs, or what some people refer to as EM1 even, or maybe EM. It's where you take a pint of labs and a pint of molasses, pour both of those into a jar, equal parts, get it mixed up real good, and the sugary content should not allow the lactic acid bacteria to start to activate. It should basically freeze it. It'll just stay there until you put it in an environment that's not so sugary and it allows itself to wake up again and do what it does. So there's a couple ways. Saw that.
Leanna Cannon, yeah, I was just putting that up there. I've never heard of that, but
me neither. Milky spores. I'll look into it tonight, though.
That's what I was gonna say, man. That's kind of the point of this show, is that you find somebody that's kind of always been in the trenches or know somebody in the trenches or something that actually works.
Exactly.
You go to the grocery store, they're going to tell you everything that Kevin rattled off there. You're going to go through each one of those thinking that you finally found the answer, and it's not going to be there. And that goes for a lot of things, man, not just Japanese beetles. I mean, you got to really have a knowledge, IPM knowledge, to succeed in growing cannabis at a high level.
Thanks, Ania Canyon, who that was. Thanks, dude. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that we should timestamp that one. That was 58 minute. And then Juggalo. I remember that from my high school days, man. The Juggalos with the what's that shit called? Fuego soda, something like that. It was some wild ass shit, man. There was some. I don't know if they came to your town, man, but they definitely came to Atlanta.
Nope.
So to Juggalos. How often would you use EM5 and OHN white black IPM?
Yeah, so that's my OHN. Then he's talking about OHN white and black as IPM. So I would use it if your plants are healthy. Use it every other week. That's basically what I do. And what I use is 1 gallon of water, I will use 1 ounce of each. 2 gallons of water, 2 ounces of each if you want. I wouldn't go past that. Use 3 ounces of water. 3 gallons of water. Just use about 2 ounces. Again, with organics, it's not about using more. It's about stabilizing it at the lowest point possible that things can constantly work in perfection. You don't want to disrupt anything. That's not what we're trying to do. So you're going to use it, but really not going to use it that much. Every other week, you're not going to really use it that much. And once you get into flowers, stop using it. Don't use it anymore. You will burn your flowers. You can spray stuff on those buds. I've done it before, and you just burn them. And you're like, dang it, just doesn't look beautiful now, and you hate it. So in veg, every 2 weeks, if you have like a 32-ounce bottle that you're spraying just a small plant with, I would use about 2 to 3 teaspoons of each in that 32-ounce bottle of water.
Right on. Well, out of time, man, we nailed it this week. And again, we want to give a shout out to Mark, not being able to catch, but that's kind of again why we like to do the three of us, man. Is the show goes on. There's always stuff going on, especially with all three of us having children. There's always going to be something that pops up. So this is fun. Friday night is fun for us. This is really going to start to grow. We're going to be able to put more time and effort into this behind the scenes. So I hope that you guys start to see that probably more towards the end of the summer when things aren't as crazy. But I really enjoy the Friday nights, man. I think talking off the cuff, keeping it to an hour has allowed a lot more people to start to discover what we've been talking about for years now.
You bet, dude. It's a whole bunch of fun. We miss you, Mark. I saw him say he was laying on the couch, eating sticks of butter, watching.
Eating sticks of butter, spoonfuls of mayo. All right.
So next week, Kid Mac, I don't know if he's still on here, but he's been wanting to give out some stuff. So what I'm going to do tonight, right now, is the first person, starting now, the first person who goes to Instagram and DMs at Kid Mac, say, I want some seeds. He will send you some of our new FIMs that we're testing right now. You need to be in the States, not Canada, not Australia, nothing like that. He going to send them. I would do it, but we're breaking him in, teaching him how to do this stuff. It can get expensive sometimes. He ain't got a business account with money in it right now. You know what I'm saying? So you guys in the States, first person to DM him on Instagram, say, I want some seeds. We're going to send you some FIMs. Now, moving on to what's going on in my life. This year, I'm going to be speaking at the second mushroom conference here in Oklahoma, put on by Oklahoma Fungi. You all know him. Jacob's an awesome dude. I'm going to be speaking on a subject I called Let There Be Soil, Mindset and Methods of Soil Creation. It's going to be fair. He is. Kid Mac, what's up, my man? So it's going to be awesome talk I'm going to give. I'm going to be talking about how I create soil from things and the mindset, the healthy mindset that got me here to a place where I can enjoy doing these things and use analogies of, microbiology and friends, of plants and children, of sunlight and good thoughts and positivity, creating awesome analogies to help you understand when you go out in your garden, you're going to be like, man, I remember Kevin saying that about my kids. I'm going to keep that sun on my plants. I want them growing to the sun, those things. So I'm going to be speaking at that one. That's in, I think that's around October 24th-ish, somewhere around there. But it's right next to what Growcast and I are going to be doing, a hands-on autumn immersive of all of us going out onto my property in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and us teaching you, or me teaching you, how to make IMO3, IMO4, Labs Bokashi, EM1, all kinds of different stuff. That's going to be on October 19th, and we are he might have opened the gates up. Growcastpodcast.com is where you can go find some stuff. I'll probably be having a link up on okcalyxshop.com as soon as I know Jordan has okayed everything. But there's 30 spots. It's limited. It's going to be, you're going to take home a lot. You're going to get to hang out with me. We're going to have lunch. I'm going to get to hang out with you. Those who come early on Friday, we probably go down to the Illinois River and hang out and medicate, have a good time. Wake up and then have an entire day of just learning natural farming techniques and methods, and me taking you out into my woods, showing you exactly what I would choose and what I would get and why, and how to take it back and what to do with it to make it useful. So that's going to be October 19th, only 30 spots. Go check that out, growcastpodcast.com. Go check out okcalyxshop.com. I put some I put some genetics on sale. I kind of rotate genetics up and keep them at a certain price. I'll put them on sale for a while, then I'll take them off. But there's been a few that I put on sale. go check all those things out. Bryan, what about you, man? How's your week gone with business?
Yeah, life is good. I wanted obviously shout out to Mark. I love wearing his gear. Whoever picks out his hats and his hoodies and stuff, they know which which brands people are going to wear more than one or two times. I think there's something to that. So shout out to MI Beneficial. Shout out to Mark. Shout out to Dan and Ray, Shop Terrarium Tribe. For you guys that don't know, we are trying to get more into the terrarium side of things with isopods, as well as kind of designing the terrariums. Dan and Ray are the experts. We're just kind of filling in the orders. And then, of course, if you can support us by just going to rubberduckyisopods.com, a family-owned business, definitely one of the leaders in the isopod world, trying to also be known as one of the leaders in the bioactive world. And that's why I appreciate Mark and Kevin being here with us each and every week, educating you guys and hopefully giving you guys like little tidbits, like that Japanese beetle, man. I have no idea if that shit works, buddy. But if it does work, I know that you had just changed a lot of people's mindsets on kind of like when you first found out, I think from like a spider mite point of view. It wasn't the end of you didn't have to start all over like in the early days. And then, of course, russet mites came about. And then root aphids came. There's always something. So just shout out to everybody that's supporting the show, putting our stuff out there. It's just been a wild ride, man, and there's something to understanding Mother Nature and then take care of your family with finding ways to monetize it a little bit.
That's right. That's right. Well, guys, thank you all for listening. Go check us out on Instagram. I got some garden videos up, okcalyx.com. Go check out at Rubber Ducky Isopods. And we appreciate you guys listening. Come back here next week, Friday at 8 o'clock Central, Bioactive Live. Mark, we hope you're here next week.
Absolutely, buddy.
See you next week.